Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 75 of Yammer Hotspots with Stu, who is in the Biddigal lands, and I'm coming to you from the Durrag lands. And pay respects to all of the traditional custodians of our land, and past, present, and emerging. Stu, take it away.
Yeah, Greg, we are on episode 75.
Made it.
No costs spared in getting that celebratory screen
Put
up.
it in front of you so we can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. 75. I have no idea how we got to 75 exactly, but yeah, we started quite a while ago. And as an interesting point, if I jump back to sharing my screen very quickly. This is the Yammer Hotspots webpage, and we're on episode 75. And one of our guests today, Hubert Lamb, actually joined us in the very first episode that we had, which had guests on it. So we've got him back again today. So that's going to be really interesting. It was May 2020 when we last spoke to him. So the oldest returning guest on Yammer Hotspots history. What's new with me is the bit that we'll look at first, and we had an issue. It was going since October the 16th, and it was a whole lot of people saying that they had multiple staff across their school who said they couldn't access their Google shared drives. They'd try and go to shared drives, and some of them would appear, some of them wouldn't appear, and there'd be all sorts of strange problems going on. It was logged pretty much the same time with Google as a ticket, and on Friday afternoon they sent us a response saying that that has now been resolved, but because most people access Google Drive shared drives in the browser, poisoned browser caches are remembering the fact that those things weren't visible to them, and they're saying that you need to go Control F5. In some cases, some people are saying they need to clear the cache and then sign out and sign back in order to see them again. But some people might still be telling you they can't see shared drives on Google Drives, and yeah, tell them as the first point of call that they should be doing a Control F5 on Windows. On a Mac, it's Command Shift R for Chrome on the Mac, or it's Command and then the recycle symbol, or whatever that circle arrow thing is that's on the keyboard. Next thing is there's an email that's going to go out to about 350 schools that have school member servers that are joined to Det NSW. And what they're doing is they're going to be installing Microsoft Defender endpoint remotely onto every one of those servers. And this is the email that you're going to be receiving that talks about it's going to go to the school admin manager, and it has advice there to pass it on to the ICT support person for their information. What's happening, we're going to be installing endpoint. It's for primary schools that have got member servers. It's happening from 4 p.m. on Wednesday the 2nd, so that's this Wednesday, and it's going to take up until Sunday the 6th to go through that group of schools. And for high school servers, it starts on Monday the 7th, next Monday, through to Thursday the 10th. So it's being done after hours, and it will be, once it's fully installed, there is a scheduled reboot that will occur after school hours on that server to make that active. We don't expect any impact to normal school operations, but be aware that there will be a server restart, and that may or may not mean different things depending on what that member server is used for at your school. So look out for that email if you're a school that has a member server that's joined onto Det NSW. Member server, for those people that don't have one, is a second Windows server. Sometimes it's a third one that is beyond the ET for all server, not any of the virtual servers that are on that, but a dedicated server that has been attached to Det NSW in your school and used for whatever purpose. Each school decides what they want to use those things for. And the last one is a tip that we had. Greg, you know that we've been using this Yammer Hotspots Teams meeting. The Teams meeting that we're using today is exactly the same Teams meeting URL that we used for that first episode back in the beginning of May of 2020. And we've had a bunch of people ask over the time, how do you go about creating a reusable Teams meeting so that, say I'm in a school and I want to have a regular every term information session for parents, and we want to have that as a big group meeting, and we want to reuse the same URL so everybody comes in on that same URL. But when they come in, the participants don't have their camera, they don't have their microphone. They can use chat, or maybe they don't want to use chat, but they want to use the question and answer panel. How do you set all of those things up so that every time those meetings are run, you have those restrictions applied to the attendees? And this little tip that I created on Friday, there's a video that explains exactly how to do that, because yeah, we've been doing it really successfully for 75 episodes. The system just works, and they want to know, well, how do you do it? Excellent. And I had to think back 2 years how we did it.
Google. How does it do that?
That's it from me. Greg, what have you got for us?
Excellent. I'm going to do a quick screen share here. 75, stick it in front of you. It gets lost in the background. Okay, come on, up you come. Should be that one. So a little quick sort of refresher, I think, for a lot of people, and it's only because I came across this from an interesting one, having not been on a holiday for 2 years or thereabouts. I started looking into deciding whether I wanted to plan a holiday, and this little thing in either TikTok or one of those weird social media things came up with a girl who was planning her holiday, and I thought, hang on, there's a lot of stuff that you could use with Google Maps, etc., and using what is Google My Maps, so there's specific maps within school and education. So within the list of shortcuts or links that Stu's put into the website, you'll start to see some very interesting things on how to help that you could pass out to your staff to give them some ideas on how they could actually use My Maps within the school. Now, the thing that I actually really like about this is, one, you can import data, and there's some really good help on how to lay out your Excel spreadsheets or your Google Sheets, etc., so that you can import data and then it will map it for you in a particular area. And so any of your social sciences subjects and all of those areas that would allow you to start having a look at data that would be much easier to interpret on a map, you can import and bring it in. The interesting thing that I don't know whether it's being used a real lot is the ability to collaborate and share, which is an interesting one, where you could create a mind map and then share it, put it in a Google Drive that would be, or your Google Classroom, and then the class can work on that at the same time in that share. So there's a share one in here as well on how to create your collaborative Google My Maps. But there's some really good little hints in there, and I just sort of went through and thought, hang on, this is a cute little thing that would be great for people to be using, or let people know how to actually use. That last video, he goes through the whole thing with importing data, etc. So 3, 4 really good little links for you using My Maps within Google. And if you're creating anything with an excursion or how to get to A to B, we've used this one here quite a lot with how to get from Redfern Station to our office when we used to run a lot of our PL in here at Everleigh, and hopefully we'll be starting that again soon. And so that's Google My Maps. But I am going to finish with one other thing, and I will throw the link up for you. This is a 3D printed home plan that they're looking at doing at Dubbo, and they're going to be little holiday flats. And if the video comes through for you, and hopefully it will, and if you've done anything with 3D printing and you've looked at these 3D concrete printers, this is the smoothest 3D concrete, that's a big word to get out of your mouth, that I have ever seen. They're rather lumpy and horrible. This is beautiful the way that it's printing, and it's an Australian design that they're bringing in, and just looking at the way it lays down this, and I'll call it filament, because it just looks so beautifully fluid. They must have the viscosity set up brilliantly. Have a look at this video and book up a holiday in Dubbo when they get it done. It should be a year or 2 off. Very interesting.
So what are they actually building?
They're going to build holiday park, 100 cabins. And let me see if it brings up the next photo. That's a bit of an idea what it looks like. So they'll probably be throwing a whole pile of insulation in the gaps. Mm. And then there's a little cute look at it. Looks a little bit like Hobbitsville. out of Lord of the Rings, but really cute little one. There's going to be 100 of them, all 3D printed. And they're looking at something like a 20 to 30% decrease in cost or savings in the cost of building them over conventional building methods. So very, very interesting.
That wavy line of the wall, that's so that it doesn't tip over.
Well, yeah, you put a bit of corrugation in it to do that, but you've also got the horizontal corrugation of the filament lines of the way it looks down. So it's a really good effect that they're getting in. Though that you need curves for this because it does give it a bit of structural, and you should see that there's cross reinforcing wires that they're putting in as well. So a bit of stability, but brilliant system. I just love the way it prints. I've seen a lot of these and they're very lumpy and horrible. This one's one of the best I've ever seen. It goes up to 6.5 meters high, I think it'll actually print to.
It'll be interesting to compare the cost of something like this with a traditional build.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 20 to 30% cheaper.
Wow, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Let's move on to our guests. And there's the link for you in the chat if you wanted to have a look at that.
Absolutely. Well, it is time to bring our first guest on. So let's ask her to turn her camera on. And why is my computer not behaving itself? That's good. And we're crossing to one of my favourite parts of the States at Port Stephens to meet the Stage 3 Assistant Principal at Wirreanda Public School. With more than 600 students, it's one of our larger rural access gap schools. That's a primary school. So please welcome Liz Johnson to Yammer Hotspots.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, as RAG school, you've probably been pretty well resourced when it comes to technology. What can students and different stages at your school expect to be using at Wirreanda Public School?
Yes, thanks, Stu. Thanks for having me on this afternoon. I've not done anything like this before, so it's a bit out of my element, but we're really excited here at Wirreanda. We've been doing some big changes around technology, and it's certainly catching on throughout the whole school. So as you said, we've got over 600 students here at school. We've got 24 classes, K6. So through the allocation that we got as part of the Rural Access Gap, plus some of our own funding, over the last few years, we've been focusing on building up our technology bank. And some of the things here on the screen that you can see we have in our school is that each of our classroom teachers that are working 3 or more days in the week have their own laptop that they can take home to do planning. We have Chromebooks in our classrooms, particularly in our 3 to 6 end of the school, where there's either one between 2 or one each in stage 3. And there's been a lot of mentoring going in to help the teachers to be able to use those. We rarely buy workbooks anymore. They're almost redundant, but we're still finding that we've got a bit of room to grow in that area as well. We have a lot of iPads across the school, and we have banks of them that are up in the library, and teachers can borrow those out, which they do, which is really exciting. We're constantly needing to check into Central to see who's borrowed the iPads, because if you just send kids up there to bring them back in their baskets, often you'll get a phone call or a message over the PA to say somebody else already had those booked. One of our best resources is our TSO, Glenworth, and he's able to help on the technical side of things. So I take the mentoring and Glenn does the technical side. So that's really fantastic. So this year, as part of the RAG, we have our MLDs in each classroom, and some of our older ones, and I say older, they weren't that old to begin with, have now gone to some of the other spaces like the library and some of the other learning spaces that we use for intervention. So across the school, yeah, we are very well resourced.
Yeah, excellent. You mentioned you've got a TSO there. How many days a week would Glenn be working?
Well, he was working 5 days to begin with. I think he's at 3 days at the moment, and it's not due to the lack of work for him. There's definitely lots for him to do, but he's working 3 days at the moment.
That's good. So taking on so much new technology in a short period usually needs a lot of teacher support. And I hear you've been taken off class for the past 2 years, and you're an instructional leader type role, as well as being the school's digital classroom officer, which is part of the RAG program. How have these roles in the school assisted with upskilling the teachers?
Yep. So in the last 2 years, I've been really lucky because my instructional leader was funded through the school, but it was really around boosting student engagement and building teacher capacity in literacy and numeracy. But I think through my passion with technology, and along came the DCO role, which married up perfectly, it meant that I wasn't needing to do my DCO role on just one day. I was able to spread it out across the week. And I know that next year, as I move into the new APC and I job, it's also a nice little transition into improving literacy and numeracy through technology as well. So a lot of what I'm doing is just around helping teachers to implement the SAM-R model. And instead of them just using pencil and paper and now using technology to replace those things, it's really about how do we use technology so that students are learning skills for the future, but also in a way that they wouldn't be able to use a pen and paper for. So real life skills. You can see here that some of the things that we do most often use would be around Canva, the use of Seesaw, particularly K2, and the use of Google Sites. And I should have put Microsoft Sway in there as well. So classes are using a real mixture of things. The roadmap that you can see on the left there was a reflection that we did in our DCO mentoring last week that just sort of outlines for teachers the things that we've been doing throughout the year. And the really fantastic thing is that's all hyperlinked. And when a new teacher comes in next year, I'll be able to forward that document on so they can see what things that we've been working on and they can upskill themselves in those things before they get here as well.
A great graphic. Love it.
So it wasn't my idea.
Oh, I just love it. It just looks really good. It's engaging.
The RAG program is putting a lot of work into the digital maturity roadmap stuff. So it's great to see, and we're going to see that extended to all schools at some point in time.
Yeah, it's been a good development there. So, Les, I believe that all of that assistance has really grown collaboration across the school. Mm-hmm. What kind of new collaborative initiatives have come about, and what's their impact been?
Yeah, thank you. When throughout the year, we've been really strategic in the way that we deliver professional learning. We're very conscious of not just having sit-down staff meetings. So you can sort of see here are some examples of ways that my digital technology role and instructional leader role has sort of rolled out in different ways. So we have timetable mentoring in the week where we use some of our QTSS money to release teachers from class to be able to work on different things. These are just some technology examples, but they've sort of always had a numeracy focus or they've had a literacy focus. This is just one example. And then the opt-in PL have just been some fun afternoon teas that we've thrown on for different things. We had the filming kit come in as part of the STEM T4L, so teachers might have liked to have figured out how to use that. And our PL flyers we use through smore.com, and I send those out. They're in relation to one of the big focuses we have going in the school, and then teachers can sort of follow up by having a look at some of the links that might be mentioned. But just in terms of collaboration, just in terms of student collaboration, we've always sort of followed the project-based learning model, particularly in 3-6, but we have done it K6 for a while now. And that was all around boosting student engagement. And then through COVID, the exec team read the book Clarity, and we actually found the model around collaborative inquiry to be really a really great example of how it doesn't need to be a huge, big project, that it actually shows you how in every lesson you can factor in, you can see some of those templates there, some of those headings there, how you can factor in things like robust questions and explicitly teaching collaboration skills, time for accountable talk and feedback, and how that can sort of boost anything that you're working on. So I'd really recommend that if there's teachers out there that haven't used collaborative inquiry. We found that to be a really great way to boost collaboration among students. But in terms of teacher collaboration, we have a degree practice handbook where staff have sat down and said what we do here, and just if there's a new staff member come in, we pass them the handbook so they can sort of see some of the things that are important to us here at Wirianda. So teacher collaboration is something that we would pride ourselves on, but it's also been something we've refined over many, many years. We have our expectations in the handbook, but it's also something we timetable into our RFF timetable. It ensures consistency across classrooms, and we're actually using OneNote, which is something I've been helping teachers with over a few years to plan and to it sort of takes the load off each other when they're sort of taking different elements and planning them between the grades. So they're grade-based OneNotes, and they have a day book in there. They can sort of write what they're doing and share the load a little bit. So yeah, we find through the RFF timetable and the use of OneNote that teachers are really great at being able to collaborate on whatever they're working on.
So glad to see you doing that. It's fantastic. Stu, we're going to show a video.
Yeah, the main reason we got Liz on was because I found this video that was up on the internet, and I thought, wow, this is fantastic. There's something that's happening in one of our schools. So if I could just get you to stop the sharing there.
Yeah, sure. I'm shaking my head because I've got a lot of heat for this video. It was an out-of-body experience to go through something like this. I'll talk through after you've shown it.
Part of the joy that I get out of teaching is being able to teach young children skills that they're going to use for life. In the 15 years that I've been teaching, I've gone from students having workbooks and pencils to now all of our classrooms have mobile learning devices. We use Canva at our school as a way of students presenting their learning, and we also use it as a teaching tool, so teachers are able to deliver their lessons through Canva. There's a really big variety of photos and images and graphics for them to choose from. They also love the fact that there's a wide range of templates, so they don't need to start from scratch when they're designing. We've really improved our ability to be able to use Canva to present the information that they're working on. Some of the things that I like about Canva is creating my own class, and as students finish completing a task, they can click on Share with Teacher and I can see all of the different designs that they're working on. I think the biggest change is around how they present information. They've gone from using pencils and paper to now having to work with multimodal text and being able to adapt quite quickly to what the future is going to expect of them. And Canva provides students with an opportunity to apply what they're learning in the classroom to the real world.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for that. No, great video, fantastic video, and it's sort of timely because Joe, myself, and a couple of our DCOs are doing a presentation with Canva at a Dove's Leadership program that the Minister's running on Wednesday. So
wow.
Your school was chosen to be part of a Canva for Education global launch. That must have been very exciting for everyone. What else can you tell us about how Canva is used at your school? You've elaborated already pretty much in that video, but what else are you doing? It looks fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. We it was definitely something strange to be part of, but such a huge opportunity for our school to also be a part of it. It came about during mentoring when one day I was just talking about something that I'd done in Canva, and I thought, oh wow, we don't have budgets like this in the Department of Education, so it was very exciting to be a part of it. Some of the things that we do here at school, mostly Canva's used to years 2 to 6, but we do have some really keen kindergarten teachers that are using Canva in kindergarten as well. You can see on the screen here some of the examples where we have a really big focus on learning goals here at school. So most students years 2 to 6 are creating learning goals using Canva and then sharing those off, not just with their teacher, but down the track with their parents as well. The infographic side of things and the maths that you can see there, that's been the biggest shift that we've made probably in stage 3. We took an idea from the T4L magazine around the use of Canva and telling mathematical facts and stats about the world, or even if it's a geography lesson about, you know, a country or something, and how to tell that using an infographic. And the kids have absolutely loved that. Nearly every lesson that you say, we're going to use a Canva today, they say, can we do it on as an infographic? But you can see the one that we've done here on Snapchat. I created a website for parents around safe use of internet. But instead of me sending out the link, I got them to pick a social media platform of their choice. This person's picked Snapchat. They had to sort of write all of the things that they found out about the safe use of it. But within that, they put a QR code to the website that I created. So they sent home the message in their own sort of way. We're using it for kindergarten transition. We're creating videos at the moment, and then they'll put a QR link into their About Me template so that their template sort of comes to life. And at the moment, stage 3 are working on a graphic design unit of work where they're creating a logo for a company that has their name in it, and they're creating merchandise to go along with it. So they're creating logos and things to transfer onto t-shirts. So yeah, very exciting across the school.
It is an amazing tool, and I know that
It's
Adobe are very scared of Canva at the moment. So it's just doing things and making it so easy compared to the Adobe stuff. And have a look at the video capabilities. It's a really clever tool.
It's so easy to use, yes.
Yeah.
You're doing some fantastic things up there at Wirianda Public
Thank
School.
you.
It's great that you've been able to share those with us today. Thanks very much for
Amazing.
preparing
Thanks,
all those
Les.
slides as
Thank
well,
you.
because they're very helpful in giving people an idea of what's actually happening at the school. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much for having me. Bye-bye.
And it's time now for our second guest. And it was at the end of April of 2020 when we started this little show called Yammer Hotspots. And that first episode had no guests, as Greg and I set the scene for our future episodes. We didn't know what was going on, but we thought we'd give it a go. The first guest that joined us the following week, and one of them was our next guest, and he's the head teacher of maths, and he's also the ICT instructional specialist at Normanhurst Boys High School, and he's also a Yammer regular. It's about time we caught back up with him again, so please welcome Hubert Lamb back to Yammer Hotspots.
Thanks, Stu and Greg.
Yeah, Hubert, it only took us to episode 75 to get you back, so viewers probably have forgotten that Normanhurst Boys High School is a selective high school in northern Sydney, but you've had some changes to your role. What extra things are you doing now?
Yeah, so towards the end of 2020, the then computer coordinator finished up with his time, and then the principal then had to obviously find a replacement, and I guess that was after lockdown 1, which was April, right? And then so I thought, yep, okay, I think, you know, I could do the job. Let's give it a shot. And they renamed it Instructional Specialist ICT rather than just the computer coordinator, which would have been a very, I think that phrase was there for a very long time. But obviously, I think in previous Yammer Hotspots, and we've, you know, discussed this to no end on Yammer itself, that role has really evolved. It's no longer just, you know, from ITD's perspective, it's no longer just plonking desktops or laptops in front of people. There needs to be a lot of staff training that happens, and ongoing staff training. So not a little bit like eating, right? We probably should eat in smaller proportions, but more frequently, rather than have one big meal per day only. So yeah, that this new role for me was really just taking what we tried to do during lockdown 1, some of the things that we'd learned, and then continuing on with the staff training. So I'm more or less known as a bit more of the software guy as well, whereas my TSO, Alex, he's fantastic. He sometimes pops his head up into Yammer Hotspots as well. He's more the hardware guy. So he actually looks after, you know, desktops that might need a bit of a repair. So I don't, you know, that's really his domain, and whereas so there's a, you know, nice little divide, and I tend to then look at, okay, how we can apply that software.
In learning. Yep.
And you're an early adopter. You've always been a strong advocate for Microsoft Teams, for SharePoint and Power Automate. Now that we're about 5 years down that road, what sort of impacts are you seeing on staff productivity and student learning at your school?
Yeah, no, that's really paid off, I think. So I'm just going to get my screen shared right now, just to quickly show others our intranet refresh. So I think one of the most difficult things back in the day was not having had SharePoint in the past prior to 2017, was that a lot of things were communicated across in a transitory medium, such as email, and you know, other faculties may have started to resort to their own smaller group-based communications, and you know, some faculties might even use WhatsApp to talk to each other. But the problem with those messages is that they move up and down, and even Teams itself moves up and down quite frequently, depending on how busy that team is. So depending on your WhatsApp group or whatever it is, SharePoint lets you have things in a location which isn't going to move around. So that's the benefit of a website. So this one here is our latest refresh of the SharePoint intranet page. This is the old one, right? It's looking a little bit tired now. That was 2017. And this is the SharePoint modern one, which now works on mobile as well. And we also did a refresh on our maths one as well. So even within maths, there's a nice, a very nice intranet page, all together with calendars and whatnot and lists, etc., so that people can actually go and actually find things and have it all there for them. So the similar things have sprung up since for students. So our latest experiment is to try and use that homepage for student-based teams. And it's it's allowed the students to then just go straight somewhere to look for a set of solutions to some maths problems that we may have solved by recording a video, for example. So it's it's really doing basic things, but I think our motto is then let's try and do it really, really well. Because I think the frustration is I saw that, where is it now? Whether it be email or your Teams messages, and as I said, Teams messages will still move up and down as good as Teams is. So we really needed SharePoint, and the other bit is the Power Automate. So a very simple application is how do we then submit an article to our office, because alternating people actually do the newsletter. And so rather than flood both people with it, so we've now got a nice little Teams / SharePoint / Power Automate based solution and forms, right? So people on the whole school intranet just need to really click on a little form over here, I think, submit newsletter and website article. Fill out a quick form, upload whatever they have to upload. Oops, yep, here it is. Upload whatever they have to upload, and it just goes straight to the correct people. And you can even talk on Teams after you've actually submitted it in case you need to change something. So there's been quite a few extra inventions like this in the past, just so that it takes the pressure off workload issues.
So that's got a workflow around it. So they submit it, it then gets approved by somebody, and they click a button, and it's then live. Is that the deal?
That's right. And so it's actually gathered all together in this little newsletter channel in the communications and community engagement team, right? So before when it actually loads up, you'll find that there's actually a thread that contains every update. But again, there is somewhere static, such as this newsletter item tracker, which then gathers all of the existing articles that have been submitted that haven't been placed in the newsletter yet. So again, it's really just pulling all sorts of different Microsoft offerings together and to make it work. And Power Automate is that glue that glues every other thing together within the Microsoft world. Yeah.
You've just got to have a bit of a play with that. There you go. I've just got a bug in my throat.
That's okay.
Yeah, you've just got to play with these things and start to work out how you get things working within Teams or Power Automate, etc. And it's not that difficult. You just got to have a little bit of time to play with it.
Yeah.
You agree with that? Yep.
Absolutely, and you could make things look as good as you wanted to. So all these adaptive cards that you can actually write. I really didn't actually go and code it myself. I mean, you may have had to do a little bit of low code, but really there's an interface on adaptivecards.io that will actually help you build something that looks a bit like this.
Yep.
So there's things there, and then all you need to do, and you can see all the collaboration that's happening below that, all the updates. So really, there's no excuse for being out of the loop these days.
And I think once teachers start to see the benefits of it, they think, hang on, I need to play with this and see how I can help it at my school.
So have you actively dissuaded people from using email and
well, it hasn't been effective
this environment?
Not using email.
That's my motto in the school. I hate email, in the sense that we can't escape from it with external stakeholders, right? That they can't get into our Teams tenant, but within our own school, we try to reduce it as much as possible for the purposes of that. Okay, we can, number one, find things, and the other one is actually the fact that no one's really out of the loop if you post it properly in a Teams channel. Teams chat can still get a little bit email-like. And again, Teams chat is really for, it's got its own use case. It's for things that you can read and therefore dispose, and therefore not care about the fact that you've actually lost that message forever because it's gone up in the feed there. Yeah.
But you can go back and find it. That's one thing I do like about it.
That's right.
The search isn't bad.
Yeah, that's good. So
right.
Hubert, we've spoken to multiple school teachers who, like you, have been developing fantastic local solutions using Microsoft 365 Suite and then sharing them with other schools through platforms like Yammer. Why do you think it's important that teachers with tech abilities share such skills and initiatives?
I'll use a bit of an analogy from the HSC, because our school is a little bit more HSC results focused than most.
Yep.
We obviously will cop flack if parents see HSC results go down the gurgler. But
Yes.
the best cohorts that have come through, right, given that if teaching quality remains equal from year to year, is that when those cohorts actually work together and help each other, that's when you actually, for those who understand that moderation process, it's when the pie of HSC marks grows because they've helped each other and they've helped the in inverted commas, worst performing student lift their performance.
Yep.
And we actually have seen in the past superstars in a cohort that may not have been very collaborative, that may have sort of kept things to themselves. It ended up that, okay, they still got very good results, right? But they left everybody else behind. I think that goes the same for the teaching service. To work in isolation and leaving your colleagues behind, and given that we are also somewhat judged as a collective, rightly or wrongly, right?
Yes.
Obviously the Sydney Morning Herald and the Daily Telegraph having articles almost every 4 days now, if not more frequently.
Yep.
And I guess what a wonderful thing it is if we were then able to lift everybody up by sharing these things on a platform like Yammer, so that we can do our basics better, so that we actually squish down our workload problems.
Yes.
And maximize the use of the tech that and I have to say the department really has given us quite a fair bit. I'm hearing in some other jurisdictions that each and every school has had to look for their own platform and actually sign up with I don't know, Google, Microsoft. We really have come leaps and bounds compared to even when I first started it as a head teacher here at this school. So I think what we've been gifted with these days really opens up a lot of opportunities to do things quickly, do things by making less mistakes. And I'm hoping that, by doing things with the tech, we're able to lift some of that burdensome administration. And in fact, if there is not as worthwhile administration that's involved, we could at least speed up the process there or even make less mistakes. And I think at the end of the day, student learning outcomes improve when teachers have less pressure in that direction. Rather than just talk about teaching and learning, let's just see how we can really clear the decks of it. And I think for us, jumping on the Microsoft platforms here to just gradually clear away those little things that have gotten in our way, the miscommunication that may have happened with just using email and attachments in the past, has, as a very, very simple example, mind you, right, has really lifted our teacher wellbeing, and also, year to year, it's actually lifted student results.
Absolutely brilliant. And I think everybody would agree that, and everybody is on this particular session here, a very dedicated teacher, and you know what you're doing and you're looking at trying to help staff students. It's fantastic. And for that reason, it was fantastic to see that you were recently recognised by receiving the Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence, as well as another Excellence Award from the Mathematical Association of New South Wales. It's tough times for teachers these days. What drives you to keep this excellence going?
For me, it's obviously the ultimate goal is the students' results going up, right? And that's that's why we're all here. But the other bit that's probably not spoken about as frequently, it's and I'll give you the example from my own department that I have to look after. They're just a fantastic group of 9. I'm one of the 9. And in fact, for us, I've got six of them, I think, under the age of 31.
Oh.
Yep, it's a very, very green faculty. I'm not one of those 6 anymore. I've moved up in the age bracket this year. I've got to tick the other box now. But seeing the beginning teachers grow from having walked out of university having been shown particular things in the initial teacher training, not necessarily being exposed to some of the newer tech that might be available in schools, because sometimes in ITE, initial teacher education, they could still be a couple of years behind in terms of knowing what's actually there in the department. And then seeing them grow is really, really, I think, been one of the things that's driven me. And, some of them have matured really, really quickly, spread their wings, took up more responsibilities across the school, assistant year advising, prefects, SRC coordination, attendance monitoring, you name it. And to see that capacity being built because we've managed to clear the decks of administrative burden, I think is really, really encouraging. So again, that's not to say that we don't focus on student results, but another one is just seeing those colleagues grow and hopefully none of them burning out.
Yes.
Because again, that's one of those big issues that's out there at the moment, right? And I guess the other one was, I think, learnt during the lockdowns, as difficult times as those times were, it actually gave us a lot of opportunity to actually just dip our toes into things that we probably never would have tried anyway.
Yes.
So a lot of schools were more innovative than before. And, as much as it's a bit of a cliche, no pain, no gain, but given that there was the suffering involved, right? Everybody suffered through those times. But at the end of it, like an Australian bushfire, there was also growth and maturity that came out of it at the end, isn't there?
Lovely analogy.
Yep. So I'd be encouraging others out there. Yeah, they're we are living in tough times, and there's no shying away from it. But quite often it is during these tough times that there is that opportunity for growth and improvement. And again, probably ITD probably doesn't get thanked enough, but obviously our friend Michael, who's recently left the department, but if it were not for his work and a lot of other people's work that was out there very active on Yammer, then we probably wouldn't have come as far as we have. And helping us with things like Microsoft 365, Google, we had none of that stuff even a decade ago. So I think a big thank you to those people as well for having gone through the paperwork, gone through the legwork to get us those tools so that we can then deliver the improvements for students and for staff.
Absolutely brilliant. I think the tools arrived just in time for us.
Absolutely.
And the willingness of staff to sort of, well, let's get in and get our hands dirty on this stuff. And they went, oh, hang on, it's not that bad.
And the other thing is, I was scratching my head. Obviously, back in Southeast Asia, right, which is where I was born, they had their own little lockdown back in 2003 with SARS. I was wondering, wow, how would we have coped with SARS back then if we were to go into lockdown? I don't think we would have, because there just was not any of this stuff available, even if you had the money back then, right? So irrespective of government funding, I think, as much as we had to suffer, during these 2 lockdowns that we've had, if it had it to happen earlier, it would have been even more difficult. Yeah.
Did we have Adobe Connect then, Stu?
Yeah. Yes, we did. But
that's another long history lesson. That's Stu's
whether it's
right.
Whether it was
would have been
viable
that dropping
product.
off the little packages of books and everything else in front of the school.
Adobe Connect's been around in the department for a very long time, but whether it was a viable product to do what the sort of achievements.
I don't think we had the licenses to cover everybody, nor did we have the equipment that probably would have run it well. Yes.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Thank you very much, Hubert. It's been great catching up again. It's always great to see the things that have been happening at Normanhurst Boys High School, and we hear about them, and you're posting videos on Yammer of the different things that you're coming up with. So it's great to see that sharing continuing since our first time we spoke. That's it for another episode of Yammer Hotspots. Remembering this was episode 75. Next week we won't have a celebratory poster, so it's just going to be 76, I guess.
I love the high-tech transition.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining us.
See you soon. See you next week.
Thank you to both of our guests today, and we'll see you next week.
See you then. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Hubert. Bye-bye.